Immanuel Kant proposed that the human brain functions as a filter, meaning we never actually see objective reality. We experience a curated version of the universe, a three-dimensional shell, while the true, chaotic nature of things, the noumena, remains entirely hidden from our view. This perceptual isolation means that every person is trapped within their own subjective bubble. Because we cannot see the world exactly as others do, we are forced to act as individual players in a massive, disjointed system, unaware of the internal logic governing everyone else. In a system containing 1 million isolated players, following the established rules creates predictable behavior. This predictability allows the system to remain stable, but it also ensures that any individual trying to gain an advantage is easily suppressed by the weight of the collective rules. To dominate a field of 1 million uncoordinated people, a small group only needs to develop a method of hidden coordination. By aligning their actions while everyone else remains blind to the partnership, they gain a mathematical advantage that the isolated masses cannot replicate. Consider 100 strangers from different cultures, speaking different languages, suddenly stranded on a lethal, inescapable island. Their old identities are useless here. Survival depends entirely on their ability to bridge the gap between their isolated perceptions. Desperation forces them to invent a common language and a founding myth, a story that convinces them they are divinely chosen. This shared narrative serves as the first layer of coordination, pulling their separate bubbles into a single unified purpose. This unity is finalized through a display of total commitment. If one member takes a knife and removes his own hand without showing pain, the group no longer sees an individual, they see a leader. The shared trauma of the act functions as a biological override, binding the 100 strangers into a single, hyper-coordinated unit. This forced psychological restructuring creates what is known as a hive mind. Through extreme trauma, the group bypasses normal human boundaries, allowing them to function with a level of synchronicity that makes them effectively unstoppable against unorganized opposition. This mechanism of trauma bonding has been a standard tool for building military power throughout history. Ancient empires recognized that shared, horrific experiences could turn a group of individuals into a singular, devastating force. The Aztecs utilized mass public sacrifice to solidify their societal structure. By forcing the population to participate in or witness these acts before war, they generated a level of internal cohesion that fueled their military dominance. Sparta utilized a similar architecture of trauma, taking boys from their homes and subjecting them to brutal hazing. Their education culminated in the ritualized murder of enslaved people at night, a transgression that left the young soldiers with no choice but to rely on each other. These methods evolved into the systems that powered the Macedonian armies. By copying the Theban and Spartan models of intense internal bonding, they created the spearhead for an empire that would eventually span continents. In every instance, the logic remains the same. Committing a socially condemned act creates a point of no return. It bonds the ruling class together and turns them into a unified entity, capable of acting with a level of coordination the public cannot fathom. This strategy is defined as transgression, the intentional breaking of a society's most sacred social and moral laws to force elite coordination. We see this logic applied in modern conflicts, where certain military actions appear unnecessarily visible and horrific. These acts are often calculated to unite the internal population by leaving them with no exit but to fight to the death. When the world reacts with disgust, the perpetrators are cornered. This global backlash creates a river-behind-the-back strategy. With no hope of external acceptance, the group must remain perfectly loyal to one another, as their survival now depends entirely on their internal synchronicity. This shared isolation allows the group to think and act as one. In the field, this looks like telepathy, where members anticipate each other's moves and intentions instantaneously, acting with a speed and unity that overwhelms their enemies. What the public interprets as irrational evil is a mechanism for generating unshakable internal alignment. It is a calculated move to ensure that every member of the group is fully committed to the collective goal. For those within these secret societies, the purpose of this synchronicity extends into the spiritual realm. They believe that their coordinated actions allow them to directly interface with the complex, multidimensional architecture of the entire universe. This belief centers on the monad, the eternal source of all life and knowledge. According to this worldview, the material world is just the outer shell, and the monad is the golden core that projects reality. By engaging in mass transgressions, these groups believe they lock onto a specific frequency, acquiring supernatural agency to manipulate the shell. To these elites, the goal is to transcend the physical limitations of the illusion and achieve a level of control over the world that the uncoordinated masses could never understand, let alone resist. This predatory synchronicity is a dark mirror to the philosophies of Plato and Dante. They argued that humanity is intended to return to the monad naturally, using the pursuit of knowledge and the practice of unconditional love as the primary path. However, those in power work to block this natural path. To maintain their position, they must keep humanity isolated within the material shell, preventing the masses from forming the coordination that would challenge their dominance. This suppression is built into our social structures. Consider how modern education shifts a parent's focus from a child's happiness to their grades and future job prospects. By prioritizing external metrics over a child's internal agency, these systems function as engines of anti-love, denying the free will necessary for people to connect and form their own synchronicity. The triumph of this system relies on the public believing that the material world is the only reality. By surrendering our free will and our capacity for love, we remain trapped in the illusion, leaving the rules of the game in the hands of those who